Blake Snyder is with us tonight. He's been so kind holding on the phone for us. He is a highly accomplished screenwriter who's made millions writing films for giants like Disney and Steven Spielberg. Widely known as one of Hollywood's most successful spec screenwriters, Mr. Snyder first committed his years of hard-earned expertise to the pages of his 2005 book, Save the Cat, the last book on screenwriting you'll ever need. 6 printings later, that book has become the primary teaching tool at some of the most prestigious university screenwriting programs in the country. This month, Mr. Snyder delivers a sequel of sorts that's every bit as entertaining, enlightening, and engaging as his last effort. In Save the Cat Goes to the Movies, The Screenwriter's Guide to Every Story Ever Told, Mr. Snyder outlines a variety of genre types and applies his foolproof structural breakdowns to 50 classic films from the last 30 years. Mr. Snyder himself describes the book as a universal key to unlock every successful movie ever made. And boy, does he deliver on that promise. This incredibly fun and insightful book will deepen everyone's appreciation and understanding of great cinematic storytelling, from the newbie screenwriter to the most enthusiastic film fan. It is a tremendous pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Blake Snyder. Mr. Snyder, are you with us?
Jamie, thank you very much. Yes, I'm here.
All right, wonderful.
I'm so sorry you had a hold like that. It was an unforeseen delay in the show here, but thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Sure, I was really enjoying listening to the previous guest. What a great story, a lot of stories he had to tell, and I share with you. I love some of those films that he was mentioning.
Oh yeah,
What a great career.
Yes.
So much, yeah. So, something to really be proud of. But speaking of being proud of something, your book is fantastic. I adored it. It's written in a very conversational, fun, yet informative tone. I loved it. And I just wanted to share with you, I was watching Alien, the original Alien on cable with my girlfriend the other day. She hadn't seen it. And I shouted out, "Oh, that's a MITH. That's a Monster in the House." And she had no idea what I was talking about. So we'll fill her in during this interview. But first of all, tell me a little bit about your background. Tell me how your career started.
Well, I'm third generation, actually, of film business. My father's uncle was an RKO publicist. My dad was a producer. He a children's TV producer for shows like Roger Ramjet. I don't know if you know that show. Cartoon in the 60s is sort of a cult classic.
Yeah.
And a show called Big Blue Marble in the 70s.
Big Blue Marble, I remember.
Oh, cool.
I remember watching that like every Saturday, I believe, on NBC.
Yeah, it was a nice show about kids around the world. It was an Emmy Award-winning show, and so I grew up in the business. I mean, I did grow up in the business and learned a lot of valuable lessons from my dad. I got my SAG card doing voices for his cartoons when I was 8. So, I learned about the business a lot from him, including sort of the ups and downs of it, as your previous guest was speaking of. There's this intersection between art and commerce, and some of your best creative ideas take the longest to get made, and having a little bit of patience was a good lesson too. And then when I got out of school, I went immediately. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to write screenplays, and I started writing on spec, as it's called. So got very lucky, sold a lot of scripts over the course of my career. I sold one to Steven Spielberg called Nuclear Family. And it was, talk about a couple of great conversations. I sat across the table from Steven Spielberg as he talked about his love of movies. And, the lesson I got from him was he loved what he was doing, and he could name every movie, name what people were wearing in certain scenes,
and that you can feel that enthusiasm in every one of his movies too.
Yeah. And that's what I love about your show, and I love about this pursuit, which is I love storytelling. I love storytelling, love movies, and I love finding patterns in what makes a good story. So
let's talk about your storytelling techniques and some of those patterns as you've described them in your books. First of all, save the cat. That expression. What does that concept of save the cat mean?
Well, there have been a lot of really good screenwriting books out there, and I've learned from the masters. You know, Sid Field was, when I was coming up, it was the book that everyone read. His book called Screenplay, which is just the classic. And also from Robert McKee, lots and lots of people. You know, I've learned from the best. But even, you know, the ones that are out there seemed to me to be academic.
Right.
And what I had never seen really was sort of an inside baseball screenwriting book that sort of talks the way me and my screenwriter pals talk. And that's where Save the Cat came from. Save the Cat is just, you know, me and my buddies hanging around Jerry's Deli and after the meeting at the studio saying, you know, trying to fix a certain script. And, you know, where's the Save the Cat scene? The Save the Cat scene is when we meet the hero of a movie for the first time. And the hero does something nice, like, you know, save a cat. It makes us like him. It makes us want to go along with him. And it's a key element in getting the story going right. You know, many times we hear a variation of that note from the studio people saying, you know, why I don't like this guy. I don't like this hero. Why don't I like this hero? And very often we had failed to put in that scene.
That moment of redemption.
Well, yeah, where we go, oh, this is an okay guy. I want to see. I want to root for him.
Right.
Right.
The classic example is, you know, Al Pacino in a movie called Sea of Love. He's a cop.
You've mentioned my idol there.
Yeah, I mean, you just sealed the deal. I mean.
Oh, good. Yeah, he's terrific, and that movie in particular was sort of a comeback vehicle for him at the time. Believe it or not. I mean, and everything had to be right, and part of that was liking the character he played, and right up front, Sea of Love, he's a cop, and they have a sting operation where they bring, you know, outstanding warrants in by pretending that they're going to have breakfast with the Yankees. Well, they bust all the guys, and then here comes this one guy late to this sting operation, and he's brought his kid with him. Well, Al Pacino sees this father with his son. The dad just wants his kid to meet the Yankees. And you know, he checks the warrants, makes sure that this guy isn't like a major felon, and then he says, you know, take a walk. We're going to let you go. Flashes his badge. The guy realizes the favor he just got.
Right.
And walks away. And, you know, the great line going out was, you know, Al Pacino says, catch you later.
Absolutely.
He's not a total fool, but we like him. And I don't know about you, but I'm going with this guy now. I like this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the only reason for that scene, and that's the Save the Cat scene. It's
yeah. So your first book, Save the Cat, the last book on screenwriting you'll ever need. What motivated you to write a sequel to the last book on screenwriting?
Yeah. I got sort of I thought really that I had said everything I wanted to say in the first book, and you know, writing that really came out of, you know, writers asking me advice, and I kind of wrote it all out in a form that I thought was easy to read, and yet there was still some unfinished business. The second book really gets more into genre, and as you mentioned a little bit earlier, Monster in the House is sort of my slangy term for a type of movie that we all know. And, you know, I have 10 of those different genres. Well, I mentioned them in the first book. I sort of, in passing, sort of talked about what I thought were the 10 types of movies Hollywood makes and audiences like.
Yeah.
And then I realized, you know, we really have to go further here and explain this. So the last 2 years have really been a wonderful journey for me. I've watched, hundreds of films to pick the 50 that I thought were best examples of what different genres were, and I learned so much. I got to say, there were moments where I'd be watching a set of films and go, "Oh, I can't believe there's this character that appears in every one." And you know, for a screenwriter, it's not just about, you know, I don't want to copy. But I want to know the essence. I want to know what makes these stories work.
Well, if you could kind of illustrate for our listeners, when you're talking about the similarities between these movies as represented in these different genres. Let's take The Monster in the House. I think this first dawned on you. You had a conversation where someone said to you that I think it was Jaws and Alien are the same movie. Was that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I was a young writer, 20-year-old guy, and this was my initiation into storytelling. My friend Jim Hagen, we would go on to write that script that we sold to Nuclear Family, but at the time we were just young writers. And he said that to me. Did you know that Alien and Jaws are the same movie? Well, to me, this was mind-blowing. You know, one movie is about a shark, run amok on the beaches of Amity. The other is about, a space monster, spaceship. How are these two movies similar? Well, he went on to point out the similarities. We called it a Monster in the House movie, and they have three important characteristics. There is a monster, intent on eating the cast. There is an enclosed space into which this monster is let loose. And the most important element of this was there's a sin. Sin of greed is what lets the monster loose in Amity. It's the same sin that lets the monster loose on the spaceship Nostromo in Alien. And uncovering that societal sin is sort of the transformational thing that happens in these stories. Well, Monster House Sin, you see the story goes all the way back to the Minotaur and the Maze. Great monster, half man, half bull. Great house. This scary maze. And the sin in that story is incest, societal incest.
Yeah.
You keep seeing this movie again and again. Saw, you can think of the house that Cary Elwes is enclosed in. You can think of The Shining, a haunted house movie. Monster, house, sin, monster, house, sin. It just keeps repeating again and again. And, our job as screenwriters, our job as storytellers is to make it fresh. You take these elements. That, if you thought The Minotaur and the Maze was the last horror movie you'd ever need to watch, you haven't seen Bruce the Shark yet.
Absolutely, and you really have a way. There are 10 genre types that you have in this book, with five cinematic examples for each one. You really have a way of expressing the essence of each of these films just beautifully.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned this in your book and just now as well, that you address the need for people to feel like they're being original. And you say there's no such thing, there's only varying degrees of a fresh take on it.
Right.
And I thought that was very interesting. So why shouldn't the fledgling screenwriter out there be depressed by the idea that there are no more original ideas?
Well, and you're right. Many people will hear this and say either they don't believe it, which is common. I get that a lot, or yes, they're depressed by that. And to me, this is just again sort of my years of being a screenwriter. You start with the cliche, and then you come up with the topper. You come up with a thing that's new. That is the job of storytelling, and has been the job of storytelling forever. As I say, we're not all just ripping off Jaws. We're trying to come up with the new way to tell a scary story, finding a new way of dealing with sin and guilt. In the case of a Monster in the House movie, how does that change as time goes on, as society changes? Is there sin now? You were mentioning the Iraq War, and I think part of what makes the Japanese horror films work, where there doesn't seem to be a sin, is sort of the sin of ignorance. In The Grudge, what does she really do wrong? Nothing.
Right.
But I think what that sort of speaks to is we can go shopping at the mall and we can go buy some jeans at the Gap, and meanwhile in Iraq, I think the sin of ignorance is sort of what's common about these latest batch of horror movies, which is, I've called the nihilist monster.
That's a very good point.
Do you mind if we take a phone call real quick?
Sure,
and then I just have a few more questions to ask you. But
okay.
We have a phone caller here from an 850 area code. 850, go right ahead.
Hey, how you doing? This is Anthony, just listening into your program on this Happy Halloween.
Thank you, Anthony. Happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yes, and it's all, you're talking about scary movies So, I wanted to hear your show again, so I had to listen in, and I knew the archive was going to get, it only lasts for an hour, so I had to call in and just listen to the whole thing.
Well, thank you so much. Did you have you tried your hand at screenwriting at all? Did you have any questions related to screenwriting at all?
No, I'm just a fan, really. I'm a fan of film, and that's about it. I'm a fan of film. I went to school with the Wachowski brothers and some other directors out there in Hollywood, and I just kind of find it interesting, that people are able to, express their life in a way where it affects society on a massive scale like that, and it just piqued my interest over the last few months that ability exists, and that's about it. And so I've just kind of been listening and getting my geek on.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thanks for calling in tonight, and thanks for listening.
No problem.
I like Anthony's point about having something to say and having movies be the place to say them. I mean, that is, if it was the 18th century, we'd all be writing novels, but it isn't, we're all writing screenplays, and that's how we communicate with each other. I think also the documentary form is booming and fascinating, but even there, we follow a story template, and I have a thing in my book about all stories are about transformation. There's something that starts off at the beginning, and by the end, it's completely different. What happened? That is what a good story is, and whether it's a documentary or an independent film or a big Hollywood studio movie, these principles are what we respond to, and I have to say, it gives me chills to talk about storytelling. It gives me chills to get into, what makes a good story work. The themes that your previous guest was talking about, have to be worked, and they have to be fit into a story in a certain way. So the study of that and how that works is just never ending, and that's why I love what I'm doing now. These books have been a remarkable transformation for me. I keep selling scripts. I sold a horror movie last year, as a matter of fact. It's like my 13th spec script.
Congratulations!
Oh, yeah, thanks. But the most fun I'm having now is talking to other writers and helping them with their scripts and getting some of these points across. I think it's a very important part of communication, and telling a good story can be mastered and used in any situation. A speech you give or commercial for something, anything. We tell stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they can purchase your book on Amazon.com and also communicate with you and purchase your book through your own personal website.
Yes, and also in both the books I give out my personal email address, which is bsnyder264@AOL.com, and I welcome people to pitch me their movie idea, ask advice of anything. I'm happy to help them navigate these waters, and whether they want to make an independent film or a doc or break into the studio system in some sense, happy to help.
Well, that's wonderful.
I had just I'm so sorry we're running over, but I can't let you leave without asking you about your take on the impending writer's strike. This has been making headlines lately, and what's your take on this? Do you think it'll settle before a strike occurs, or?
Well, I was around for the '88 strike. I actually walked the line, and it's good for writers because we're usually in our rooms. We don't get out much, and it's the only time I ever got to see the other writers. Oh, hey, how are you? Oh, yeah, good to see you. So you get your call from your strike captain, and depending on where you are, some of the more well-to-do writers have their chauffeurs drive them down to the strike zone.
Right.
But the last strike was sort of unsatisfactory for everybody, I felt, and I hear varying opinions. I had a meeting or a get-together at Terry Rossia's house the other night with a bunch of screenwriters together, and convinced that it was going to go through, convinced that there was going to be a long strike. But again, for me,
a long strike.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's you don't realize, but it impacts the entire city and everything about, lots and lots of people are affected by it.
Yeah.
So I hope it gets resolved, and the only good thing about a strike for a writer is it's a great time to sit down and write a script. I mean, you can write on your own on spec. You can't be hired to write and or work for a producer or anything, but in your spare time, a lot of spec scripts were written during the '88 strike, and it led to, some of the big movies that came out and were sold afterwards. So
that's right. That's right. Which one did you find more difficult and challenging? Is it writing a screenplay or writing a book?
Definitely writing a screenplay. The books I've just discovered how much I love talking about film, and these are just a joy, just a pleasure. And watching films and finding the patterns in these films and helping people has been really, really meaningful to me. It's just put a whole new take on my career, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
A movie, Geeks United. These are phenomenal books, and they're terrific fun reads. They're selling tremendously. This must be very thrilling for you.
Well, it's a viral phenomenon, as they call it. So it's one writer reading it and passing it on to another. And yes, on the first book we're in our 12th printing, and the second one just came out in October, and it's doing great as well. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that you have kind of an open door policy where your readers can actually interact with you.
Well, that's from the very beginning. From the very first book, I put my email address in the book and asked writers to send me their log lines for their movies and ask any questions they wanted to ask. And thinking, well, a couple of people will write in. It turned out to be lots and lots.
Yeah.
So, but I love it, and I answer every email, and happy to field any question, and hear a lot of good pitches. Many of them I've, encouraged these writers to continue and write, and they have gone on to sell some of these scripts too.
Now you have a brand new website, a newly designed website. I visited it the other day, and it looks phenomenal. BlakeSnyder.com, correct? Can they get in touch with you there?
They can get in touch with me there as well. I'm at Blake@BlakeSnyder.com. That's where to contact me. And yeah, the website's been a lot of fun too. We're really increasing our traffic all the time, and we have lots of fun stuff on there. Information about my workshops, and we have software as well that goes along with our books. So it's a big it's a very exciting thing, and again, it's all kismet. I mean, I was a screenwriter for over 20 years. As you mentioned, I did have some luck in terms of selling these scripts, and the book was just done for fun, and it's really kind of changed my whole career. This is what I do now all the time.
Yeah, it has to be thrilling, and I'm seeing the things that you're going out and you're teaching all over. I saw that you had tell me about this. You participated in a career day at a high school last week in Beverly Hills. What was that about?
Oh, sure. I mean, among the many things that we're out there doing is we have an outreach to schools, and because of our software, we have now a partnership with Final Draft, the gold standard in terms of screenplay software, and we are essentially partners in an effort to our software works together. But we also have an effort to reach out to high school students. And there's a wonderful article in the LA Times last week about a charter school in Los Angeles, Camino Nuevo, that Peter Cook is the teacher there, and he uses Save the Cat to teach high school seniors about writing screenplays. And it's amazing. I mean, I went in there to visit, and the pitches that I heard from these young people were just fantastic. I mean, they really got it down, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to get everybody to tell their story and tell it concisely, and learn the good tools of storytelling.
So does that act as kind of their final exam project, a screenplay?
That is what they've done. Yes, they took a year's course in learning about screenwriting from Peter Cook, their teacher who found my book. and using our book, our software, the Final Draft software, they've all the entire class has written screenplays, and
oh wow!
And they're actually about to start making one of those screenplays, and it's just all kind of based on the things I talk about in the books.
That's incredible.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. So I know the last one just came out in October, but have the wheels been turning for a third book?
Well, yes.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack for the first book was called The Last Book on Screenwriting You'll Ever Need.
Right.
Naturally, a sequel follows.
Yes.
For any hit in Hollywood, there has to be a sequel.
So is the third one called No, I Really Mean It this time? Or?
This time for sure. Yeah. No, this is called Save the Cat Strikes Back, and it's about troubleshooting for screenwriters. But really what it's going to be about, I think, is the synthesis of the first two books.
Right.
There's so much stuff that I've picked up from teaching workshops and fielding questions from people that now I can incorporate into this third book. And I'm really hoping that the three of them will be, everything you need to know about screenwriting and storytelling. So it's a very exciting thing for me, and really, a project, that I really feel close to.
Yeah, there's so many screenwriting books out there, and they all have their merits. But yours are the best I've read, honestly.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Your passion is clear as you go through these movies, and you set examples for story structure, and it's a very inspiring read.
And you're not condescending.
That's right.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I mean, I think I've always had a great time writing. I've been writing for a long time, and the excitement that I feel for other people's scripts and projects is probably equal or greater than the excitement I felt for my own. When somebody in my class or somebody who's read my book writes me and says, I've just sold my script. It's my first script. I mean, I'm thrilled for them. I'm really thrilled for them, and it's happening a lot now.
Yeah. Now let's talk about summer movies.
Yeah.
As a film fan, do you get giddy when summertime approaches, just like all of us?
I call it the summer tingle. When I first see those posters, I was talking about it last couple of weeks ago. Indie, May 22nd. The kind of the hair on the back of my neck goes up, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that dark cavern, the movie theater, my popcorn, scrunching down in my seat and saying, here we go. I just, ever since, I went and saw my first movie, the idea of being in that theater is so exciting, and I'm hoping that this summer is a great one for Hollywood.
I hope so, too. I have a question from the chat room, though, actually, for you, Blake.
Yes.
From our friend Joel in Mexico. He wants to know how important it is to join the Writers Guild. What are the advantages and the disadvantages?
Well, joining the Writers Guild is based on a point system, which is you have to sell a script to a vested company in the WGA.
Right.
So when I was starting out, I saved my points. I wrote for a TV show or two, and I finally made a sale that I was allowed to join the WGA, and the benefits are tremendous.
Okay.
It's a terrific opportunity, but I think what you're also talking about too is working with other writers, and that's one thing we always encourage too. Talking to other writers. We have writers groups that we've formed that make you feel not so isolated. So I think it's an important thing to join groups like that. So WGA is fantastic, and my favorite part, of course, is the little green envelopes that Writers Guild sends out. This is when you have residuals for movies that you have made. And
that's very nice.
You go to your mailbox and you find the little green envelope, and you're like, it's Christmas in July, Inside is a residual check from a movie or a TV show.
I would think it would be beneficial. I've always felt it would be beneficial to join the Writers Guild, just because what's just happened with the writers' strike and everything. You don't want to be on the opposing end or the opposite end of that guild.
Well,
you want to be part of it.
That's true, and they do so much to protect the writer. The other thing is the arbitration process for assigning credit for a movie. in the bad old days, the producer or whoever might put their name on your script, and there was no redress of grievances. But that's where the WGA really came in and helped writers, and that among many, many other things too.
Well, no, that's very important, though. I don't think a lot of people today, a lot of the younger people, understand what the history of the Writers Guild and the history of Hollywood really, and how important that is.
Well, it's true, and that's what this most recent strike was about as well, which was I think we talked just before the strike began.
That's
right. And it was a really interesting process. It's my second strike that I was out on the line for, and just like what happened last time in 1988, when the strike ended, it was a great time to be a writer with a new spec script, because there have been lots of spec screenplay sales that have happened since the strike ended, and that's another thing that's important too.
Yeah, we're going to be taking phone calls if you have or question submissions through the chat room. If you have any questions about the craft of screenwriting, or you want a writer's perspective on the summer movie season, just give us a call or submit your questions. Now back to Indy real quick. What are your expectations? What do you want from it? Because a lot of critics are they're nitpicking, and a movie can't be all things to all people. So what are you wanting from this?
Well, from a screenwriting point of view, from the point of view of a well-told story, I'm looking for more of what they had in, for instance, the third installment of Indiana Jones. Real characters, real situations, some kind of learning process, at a moment where there's an amazing moment for the character. I was noticing. I was watching Last Crusade the other day. I think they were running it again on AMC.
I watched all of them the other day over the weekend.
And I just reminded again, where they really do well is when they get into, the mystery of what they're trying to discover and the amazing qualities that this is, that they're talking about. That's when I get the chill, is when they talk about, the mystery of what they're trying to solve. So, and that's real. That's real. That's what we go to movies for, is for that connection to something amazing. And it doesn't have to be special effects. It has to be a character
you're right.
grows and changes.
With these films especially.
Yeah.
But if you talk about your main character going through a metamorphosis, because usually I just know it from an actor's point of view, reading a script and looking at the chart of the character, if he has a catharsis, if he changes somehow during the course of the story. That's not necessarily what happens with Indiana Jones in the first film. I mean, you could say that the second film you get to see his compassion, but more so than any movie in the trilogy, it does seem to be that third film, The Last Crusade, where he goes through a change.
Well, yes, and it's in any good story. I mean, even the biggest tentpole movie, the big summer movie releases, even something like Iron Man, for instance, there is a story of a character who transforms. Those are the ones that work. The special effects won't do it. The amazing trailer moments won't do it. What we want to see is a real person change.
So you're saying Speed Racer doesn't match those qualities?
Yeah, well, yeah. But I think why the first one works so well is you got to see an amazing historic event happen, supposedly, and kind of tap into something divine, frankly. And I think even those words were spoken in Last Crusade. This is a divine moment, an amazing moment. And I think that's every story. Those are the ones that really work no matter what it is. So it doesn't have to have these big special effects to connect to it.
Yeah.
When Sean Connery tells him to let it go, and he calls him Indiana
for the first
when they're trying to recover the Grail, and he says, "No, Indiana, let it go."
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing moment.
Well, see, and those are the ones that really connect to us, because, as I call them in my book, so these are the primal moments. Father and son. That simple, and it's about this guy who's always wanted his father to respect him.
Right.
And that's what they set up so beautifully in the beginning of that movie, and paid off so well in the end. And how do you top that? Gee, I can't wait to find out.
I hope they don't try too hard.
Yeah, but you know, the Indiana Jones is a character. I mean, he's kind of an old-fashioned hero now. You know, the kind of the swashbuckler. But as of late, a lot of these movies that we've seen through comic books or what have you, they've kind of been the anti-heroes. And I'm looking at a couple of the other big films out this summer. I think you could certainly argue that The Dark Knight fits that mold. But a movie like Hancock. I'm reading advanced reviews of this, and it's saying that they're having a hard time finding the right tone. How far is too far when you present kind of the anti-hero aspect of your lead character? When do you start to lose an audience?
Well, again, it may not be obvious, but this is a type of movie that is a superhero movie, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they have a cape and can fly through space. The superhero is a story about a special person who has to deal with being special. You know, we send Hercules down from Mount Olympus to help us Lilliputians down here, and he never gets a thanks for any of it.
Right.
He can't date. He can't tell anybody who he is. He just has to do his mission, and that's every superhero story. You know, one of the better ones was Spider-Man 2, which clearly demonstrates the problem for Peter Parker, which is, you know, can I be a human being, or do I have to be this guy who saves everybody all the time? And that template we've seen a lot. So it looks like Hancock, what they're doing is sort of taking it to the next level. We're going to make him a guy with a drinking problem. We're going to make him a guy who's really not dealing with being special very well. And, you know, who knows how that's going to turn out. It's kind of dark comedy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm also getting the sense that, like all of these good stories, there'll be a redemption at the end where he'll find, you know, a new meaning for himself.
Oh, it has to. But upon first look at that trailer, I thought, now that's a hit. I mean, you can just read the log line of that film, and you know that put Will Smith's name on it. That's a hit.
Yeah, that's a hit. Yeah. I mean, really.
He's the summer go-to guy, and I guess how long has it been? Every July 4th he has a movie
every
come out.
July 4th, but now it seems like every Christmas too. He's now The Pursuit of Happiness. And while I don't think it's a great movie, I Am Legend, I think his performance in I Am Legend is the glue that holds that film together. I think he is excellent. I mean, if it's possible to like a performance but not the finished product, I have to say he is superb.
I think so too, and it also has one of the great save the cat moments of all time.
Tell us.
Yeah, what would that be, please?
Will Smith actually saves the cat. I mean, the first time you
That's right.
You meet him in I Am Legend. He's hunting a deer for his dinner, and a lion comes onto the scene, and he's just about to shoot the lion, and stops when his her little cub wanders onto the scene. Well, he doesn't want to make that cub an orphan, and when he doesn't shoot, we go, I like this guy.
Yeah.
And that is classic Save the Cat. That is literally Save the Cat. And this is the moment where I'm in the movie theater and I yelled out, Save the Cat. So I encourage anyone who's in the movie theater this summer who sees a Save the Cat moment to please yell out.
Yell it out. Let's start a movement here. Go on to Batman for a little bit. I know that when Batman Begins came out, Chris Nolan's film, everybody was raving because it was such a departure from the last couple they felt that were getting too kind of cartoonish in tone. What do you think, from a screenwriter standpoint, made the difference in that film, Batman Begins, from the previous few that came out?
Well, it's too blunt to say it's darker. That's clear, and it seems to be more realistic in a strange way. It's the kind of the Genesis story for Bruce Wayne, and we have to tell it again. I mean, this is constantly our job as screenwriters, is to make it fresh for this audience, for today's audience. So, you know, my vision of Batman may be Michael Keaton, and you know, my father's vision of Batman might be Adam West. But this generation's vision of Batman is something new, and they have to sort of start that up again. So both in Batman, the first one, and this Iron Man that came out this summer, these are both sort of Genesis stories that set the franchise in motion, and that's tricky. I think they did a fabulous job, and I can't wait to see this. And this will probably be the best one yet. I mean,
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see how it can't be. It looks amazing. We've had the pleasure of speaking to many screenwriters on the show, from Bo Goldman to Paul Schrader to James Vanderbilt was one of the last screenwriters we spoke to, and he just sold Spider-Man 4 and 5.
Wow.
Tell me about this superhero franchise. For me, the kind of, I mean, they're all very exciting, but the kind of weaknesses I can find in some of them is they just overload them with too much plot, too much character. Is there such a thing, or am I off on the right track there?
Well, it depends. I mean, you are truly setting up for what you hope to be a successful franchise. So if you lay in certain characters that may not mean much now, but will come back and have more meaning later, that's a tough call. So if you're a talented screenwriter, a talented movie maker, you weave all those story threads together. I still think one of the better examples is the Spider-Man series, at least the way they set it up and paid it off in 2 anyway.
Yes, yes.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, I'm really anxious to see what happens with Iron Man next after seeing the first Iron Man, and that certainly will be a successful franchise.
I think so. I can't see why not.
Yeah.
And there's such a sense of fun to Iron Man 2 that I really enjoyed. It was infectious. But in terms of the too many characters, I'm not sure I'm asking it correctly. Can you put too many foes in a movie like that? I mean, does an audience only have an ability to follow so many subplots and so many characters at a time?
Well, I think what you're talking about is something like Spider-Man 3.
Yeah,
yes.
Which perfect example.
Yeah, which did have, as I call in the screenwriting Save the Cat book, too much marzipan. Enough. A little goes a long way, and yeah, I think overloading it with story can sometimes be harm it. But this is the job, and this is why we get paid the big bucks,
right?
To work these things out. And
I wish they would have broken Spider-Man 3. They would have made it Spider-Man 3 and 4 because they just had too much going on.
Yep.
I really wish they would have made 2 of them.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Even though I love all of them, I mean, I have to say I think that's one of my favorite franchises, and I also like for all the story threads, I love the Pirates of the Caribbean series. I think they did a really wonderful job of hanging on to all those stories and paying them off well. So I love Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. I think they're really good screenwriters.
Well, yeah, they did a very good job with those.
Yeah, and it's tricky.
With those especially.
Yeah. But
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying. And this summer is our chance really to see some really good sequels. I mean, I'm really looking forward to Hellboy, for instance.
Me too.
I think that's going to be great. There's a couple of sequels that are coming out that I think
The X-Files.
X-Files. We'll find out what happens there. But and then we'll see. So
I noticed that a lot of these projects, if you're and I guess it's typecasting and screenwriting just as it would be in terms of acting as well, but you're successful at writing one franchise and you get kind of in that niche where they hire you to do nothing but that. Would you recommend a screenwriter try to be as versatile as possible in his subjects, or focus on a particular niche that they enjoy the most?
Well, an agent will tell you that they will spend half of your career putting you into a box and the second half of your career getting you out of the box.
Yeah.
I think you become known for a certain type of movie, and that's okay. I mean, I think actually having an expertise in something is a good thing. 2 of my friends are the Wibberleys, Cormac and Marianne Wibberley, who did the National Treasure shows. And they did a very smart thing with their screenwriting career, which was they wrote a lot of movies into production, as they say. I Spy and Bad Boys 2. They came in and wrote for other movies and sort of wrote them into production. And then because of their success in that, they got to do National Treasure, which was an original piece. So all of it was sort of action, comedy, screenwriting and good screenwriting. I love the Wibberleys. I think they're really, really talented, and I've watched their career with real admiration. They've just grown incredibly. So that is what we always recommend for writers, which is, take a job to do a rewrite, always be working on an original spec screenplay, and just try everything until you get into a niche that they can come back to you and call on you again.
Right.
Is that I know we asked John Sayles this question. Is that a painful process to be brought in as a spec writer to do a rewrite when it might have 15 other fingerprints on it by the time it gets to the screen?
Not. I think it's a kind of the nature of the business, and we know that's going to happen. The really conscientious writers, I know, will have even gone so far as to call another writer and say, I don't know if you know this, but I'm working on your project, and sort of not necessarily get their blessing, but at least inform them that that's what's happening. And it is a part of the business. I was when the movie Herbie Fully Loaded came out, I was one of the first writers to work on Herbie Fully Loaded. And by the time we had our arbitration process and the documents were sent to me from the WGA, guess how many writers had worked on that project? 29.
Wow.
Count them, 29. So, that's okay, and that's the nature of the business. So a little of that is okay. It's just the problem is when you are, dearly in love with your screenplay and then no longer can be attached to it. But, that's part of it too.
I'm wondering how that works. How you could possibly have 29 screenwriters working on a single project. Now, are they given one screenwriter might be given something like brush up the dialogue because you're good at snappy dialogue, or work on this moment or this scene particularly, or are they all given the whole project to redo?
It's both. Sometimes a writer's brought in for dialogue polish. Sometimes they're brought in just to write a specific scene, and sometimes they're actually called in to restructure and rewrite the entire script. So it depends, and it is a huge gamble to make these movies, as we are seeing. These are $200 million, $250 million, $300 million investments. Right. To spend a couple of $100,000 on a writer for a dialogue polish isn't much. And in the overall scheme of things, we're still the cheapest part of the production. And we're still fighting for more control. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I want to ask you about M. Night Shyamalan.
Yes.
Obviously, a force of nature when he came out with The Sixth Sense, and I think that Signs is every bit as brilliant as The Sixth Sense as well. And he has a movie. It looks like it's going to sneak up on people called The Happening coming up this summer. Tell me what your sense of that film is, and what your opinion is of his writing in general.
Well, I saw a trailer for that movie with, I guess it was with Iron Man, and overwhelmingly people responded well to it. It looks really spooky and looks really scary. But, what everyone is always asking is okay, what's the surprise at the end?
Yeah,
that's...
I've read some nasty advanced reviews of it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've read, and I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. But what I've read and what he has actually let a lot out about what it is and I don't know how. I honestly got to say, I don't know how people are going to respond to this.
I think it's his first R-rated movie, so I'm excited by the idea that he isn't holding back. I mean, he's letting every sick thought possible,
That's the impression I'm under.
Come to life. Yeah.
No kidding. Well, I'm the biggest movie fan of all. I'm going to be sitting there in the movie theater with my popcorn. I can't wait to see it. I love that moment where everyone jumps out and yells boo at the end. But the problem with it is he's up against the most recent movie The Village, and where that twist ending at the end wasn't necessarily has the same impact as in The Sixth Sense.
Right.
And or even some of his other films. So what do you do with that? I mean, that's the expectation, and now it's to a point where if you don't have a surprise ending, what are you going to think then?
Well, in a sense, that's what I liked about Signs, because you knew he was the master of the surprise ending, and yet Signs, it was exactly what it told you from the beginning. Aliens were invading. The thing that really drew me to Signs more than any of his other work is the arc of that lead character, that he lost his faith and he regained it through this experience.
Right.
And I think that's why that movie works, plain and simple. It's that arc, that human element that everyone can relate to and follow.
Well, and he does have that quality as well in all his films, which I like and which he addresses. Even for a good horror movie, you need to have some sense of story and some sense of information, and he does that. I think it'll be interesting to see what this body of work for him looks like in 10 or 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be curious.
I think you're right.
How that looks. So.
Then again, you hear a lot of times about the writers' passion projects, and I think something similar probably happened to the great directors in the 70s, when that whole era started to tone down a little bit, where they have their niche. And they go after their passion project, and they lack, I don't know if they lack judgment or what have you, but I think that's something similar to what happened with him, with Lady in the Water, whereas I think that it's his best directing to date. I think he's only gotten better as a director. I think the screenplay was a little convoluted. I mean, did you find that the case?
Well, yes, and that's generally the case with pet projects. If they are sitting around in somebody's drawer for a long, long time, you run the risk of there's a reason they were sitting around in the drawer for a long, long time, and that just because you have the passion for it, and just because you now have also the clout to do it, doesn't necessarily mean it will work.
You should do it, right?
Well, but you never know. I mean, sometimes they really work great. So it'll be interesting. I mean, he's at a really interesting part of his career here now, and this, I mean, more than anything else, I hope it's a big hit.
Yeah.
So,
I hope all of them are hits, and they all look very promising this summer. Is there anything else out there that you're salivating over this summer?
Well, in addition to the big ones, which I love, there are all these little ones that I'm kind of curious about seeing. There are these indies like the Promotion.
That looks good.
Also, Hamlet 2. I love Andrew Fleming. He did a movie called Dick with Kirsten Dunst about.
Yes.
That was very good. I like that movie a lot. Yeah.
And Hamlet 2 is a sort of a Waiting for Guffman kind of thing. A high school drama teacher is going to put on Hamlet, and Elizabeth Shue, comes into the scene. Well, playing herself. Well, that it seems really funny, and I can't wait to see what that one's about.
That does look good. That does look good. Yeah. The best movie, I was able to attend a few films at a local film festival earlier in the year, and the best movie I've seen this year, this film and the one that we're talking about in the next segment actually, is a movie called American Teen, and it's a documentary. It opens up July 25th, and it is one of the most moving films I've seen this year. And I think it's going to be a huge phenomenon if it's marketed correctly and it gets out to the right audience. In terms of documentaries are actually structured very similar to the ways you teach narrative writing in your books, correct?
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah. I have the 15 beats of my beat sheet, which tells how to tell a story, and you can apply those 15 beats to anything, and should. I mean, I've had letters from people who told me I use this structure to structure my speech that I'm giving to whoever. I use this structure to structure out a commercial that lasts 30 seconds. And yes, a documentary has the same sort of structure. If you look at, even the wild ones, like, What the Bleep Do We Know, and those are structured by the beat sheet, and all the good ones tell a story. So I'll be curious to see what that is. There's a lot of excitement around American Teen.
It's a great movie.
I finally saw a trailer for it last Friday. It looks incredible.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. I'm a softie anyway. I cry at anything, but this movie really shredded me. Knowing all that you do about screenwriting and structure and beats, when you go to the theater, is it difficult to be surprised for you?
It's funny. I was writing about this the other day in one of my columns, and watching movies, Iron Man, watching Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and realizing here are these wildly different types of movies, and yet they both hit the beats. They all have this exact same story structure. And someone wrote me and said, is this bad? Does this mean that there's a formula and that formula keeps being churned out? And no. The truth of it is you can apply these beats to every story you tell, and it's just a matter of applying your own creativity to it. So I love to see how people tell a story. I'm now more fascinated with that than ever. And yes, there are many times where I'm sitting there and going, "Oh, that was effective," instead of getting into the moment. It's like, but I think I've heard that about comedians too, which like when a comedian hears a good joke, he doesn't laugh, he just goes, "Yeah, good, good.
That's funny. That's funny."
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, good. Good thinking. But I still love the experience of going to the movies, and again, this is the summer tingle, is coming, so that'll be good.
Yeah, this is going to be a great season for movies, and a great audience movies out this summer, of course. But I think this summer something feels special about this summer over the previous few for me. But I want to end with this because we paid lip service to it last time you were on. Do you find any filmmakers that are trying to break this 3-act structure? Or do you think that's possible? Do you think a movie can work outside of the typical 3-act structure?
Oh, sure. And again, it goes back to what we've been talking about all along, which is tell me a story about a hero who transforms. Whatever that process is, that's what we're here. That's what we want to see. The beats of the story, the structure of the story can change. You look at movies that slice up time, like Pulp Fiction. Right. That use all kinds of different storytelling techniques. Atonement. It was all a dream. Right. I'm just telling you a story. You see how it works when you break up the structure. But the point of it is the structure is the same regardless. If you're going to tell me a story, you're going to tell me a one that resonates with us, and that is just a simple story about a guy or a set of heroes who transforms in the course of this adventure, and in some sense is touched by something divine. I insist that last moment, what really makes Star Wars work is use the Force, Luke.
Yeah.
It's that part where we give up everything we know that's human and we turn to something that's beyond our
leap,
imagination. And that's what we're looking for, because we want that in our own lives. So that's what works, and it will work forever.
That's right. And Mr. Blake, thank you so much for being with us tonight. 45 minutes just passed by in a snap of the fingers.
Wow.
Yes, thank you very much, Blake.
We love you on the show, and you're welcome back anytime in the future. Check out his books, the Save the Cat series. And check out his website too, blakesnyder.com. He has a blog that he keeps up, and all the news you need from him, and appearances and so forth. Thank you so much, Blake.
Thank you.
Please come back sometime in the near future.
Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it. Love your show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye now.
Bye now.
Okay, that was Blake Snyder, author of the Save the Cat series, world-renowned screenwriting teacher, fantastic website, fantastic set of books. Everyone out there, please. I mean, I've read all the screenwriting books everyone out there has, and these are really special.